Do you know your leadership skills? Especially as a woman, you organize your family's calendar, you prepare meals, you are a coordinator of so many things that happen just in daily life. And how can all of that translate into your leadership style? Well, this is fun things we're going to learn today.
Building spirituality, family, health, and business. This is The Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.
Hey, Jaya Builders, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Happy Tuesday to you. Today's guest is Kathy Holt. Hi, Kathy. How are you?
I'm great, Lois. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad the weather is warming up. So, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are?
Yes, I am a women's leadership strategist. And what that means is I work with women to help them get into positions of influence or find clarity in their purpose
Mm.
or be just elevate their leadership so that they're not just busy, but they're also considered important.
Oh, that sounds really awesome. So, what steps or how does a woman decide that she needs or would like to be in leadership?
That is a great question, and I'll just to give a little bit more background for on me because I think that kind of answers some of the question. I grew up in an age where women didn't have a lot of choices. That's when I was coming to age, and so we were basically at school offered the opportunity to be a teacher, a nurse, or back then they called it secretary, and those are great professions, but those were the only choices we were offered. So I think part of what started motivating me was just the frustration of not having a lot of choices. And that kind of has been a thread throughout pretty much everything I've done is to making sure women have those choices and have those opportunities to be heard. I mean, we were also supposed to stay in the corner and be seen and not heard, all those trite expressions that we sometimes use came from back then.
Mhm.
so so I think when women are looking at especially transitioning in their life, even earlier in their life, what is their purpose? What are their strengths? What do they want to do? What do they want to be known for? What do they want to do? That is one of the first things that really kind of motivates women to start thinking about where they're going. And when you start going somewhere, you tend to not want to just be the person that's, they always say, if you want something done, give it to a busy woman and she'll get it done. Well, that might be great for whoever wants something done, but it's not so great for us sometimes as women. So I think that's when we start recognizing that we have a lot to offer. And so how do we offer that? How do we use our strengths and our voice and stay true to our purpose, but do it strategically so that I mean, I want to be heard. I think most women do. And I think we all want to have some kind of input into the final outcome, whether it's, you know, what's happening at home, where we're going on vacation, or whether or not we want to do something at work. And if that really plays to our strengths and helps us elevate who we are.
Hmm, that's really good. Yeah. So I noticed in your notes you talk about knowing your values and your strengths and your passions as an essential leadership insight. Why do you believe self-knowledge is such a strategic advantage for women leaders?
I think it's just a strategic, it's just an advantage to really know yourself. I mean,
Oh,
the
yeah.
only relationship you are with 24/7 is yourself. And if we don't take the time to really know ourselves, we're often just, paddling along without a destination or without knowing why we're paddling
Mm.
and why it's important to us. And so I really do in my book, actually the first it's a book about different traits and different strengths and capabilities that women tend to naturally have, whether by nurture or nature. We don't need to go there, but those strengths are now considered leadership strengths because it's not the old curmudgeon in the office that's barking orders. It's people who are compassionate, empathetic, know how to nurture teams, how to collaborate. And women are good at that. But the first thing I address in my book is self-reflection because I think it's important for everything in life to know yourself. And when you know yourself, then you make better choices and you figure out what you want to do. And you just don't kind of go along with the path with the, with the crowd just because the crowd's doing it. Because I think in the end, we don't feel as fulfilled. We definitely don't feel true to ourselves sometimes because we don't really haven't defined that. And it can take you down paths that might not be where you want to go.
Yeah. So do you have any tips on how to really find ourselves or know ourselves? Because I feel like we're just kind of masked so many times, especially as women. We do what our parents told us to do. We do what we're supposed to do as a mother and so forth. How do we find out our real selves?
What you said is just so true. And there's so many, I mean, part of what I talk about messaging that happens, we're getting thousands and thousands of messages into our subconscious every day. And they can kind of shape how we think about ourselves, about our role as motherhood, our role as a parent, our role as at work, even sometimes. And so I think by doing the self-reflection, we can get out of some of those patterns of behavior and habits that have been created through all this messaging and really figure out who am I and what do I want to do? And the ways to do that is the first one is just recognizing we need to do it. That's always, they say to solve a problem, you have to recognize you have a problem. And I'm not saying it's a problem. It's just saying that, you have to recognize it. And then two, give yourself the time and the energy to do it. It's imperative to self-care to be able to do that. And women are so often so busy doing things for other people that we don't take the time to take care of ourselves. And I think that's one of the first steps is, well, first step, recognizing it. Second step, taking time. There's all kinds of things that women have been talked to about doing, meditation, journaling, just going out in nature sometimes and giving yourself that space so that you're not confined into your daily routine. So there's all different ways to do it, but I think the first two things is recognizing we need to do it and then giving ourselves the grace and the compassion to do it as self-care.
Yeah, okay. Go take a walk, ladies.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes I live now on the beach, and sometimes that's where I reflect the most because I'm not at my computer, I'm not at the kitchen, I'm not in the car, I'm just there, and nature just somehow helps me just kind of look inward.
So once we find that inward part, how does that affect our leadership? I mean, what does that change our leadership?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that it changes our leadership because women are leaders in everyday life. I think every woman is being a leader in something. I think what it helps us do is figure out where do we want to put our energy?
Okay.
Where are we feeling the best about doing something, whether that's volunteering for an organization or a shelter for animals or being a leader. That knowledge is one of the steps. Then the second part that we work on in the whole self-reflection is recognizing our strengths. We do not give ourselves credit
Mm.
for the strengths we have. Organizing a calendar for a family at home is a leadership trait. I mean, it's organizational skills, and sometimes it's like, juggling 5 or 10 balls at a time.
Mhm.
So once we recognize our strengths, then we see how can we put them to work the best? How can we strategically use them so that the thing we want to do gets done, and we're part of getting it done. That's why I say that knowing your strengths is imperative to figuring out that whole pathway and what do you want to do with your energy. Because what women also tend to do is we tend to get very involved in a lot of different things because we're good at it. We're good at it. And so we're pulled in so many different directions. That self-reflection of stopping and saying, wait a second, what direction do I want to go in?
Mm.
Where do I want to go? And then we can start using our strengths. And once again, in the book, it kind of goes through some exercises about how, what are your strengths? Are you a good listener? Can you negotiate family feuds? Can you negotiate when somebody at work is having a bad day and you've got to kind of settle them down and set them right? That just our emotional intelligence. Women are really pretty good at reading the room and figuring out how to make people feel comfortable, how to make them get them to do things, you
Mm.
know. And so those are all strengths. And once we know, give ourselves credit for having them, then we can start using them or deciding where to use them.
Give us some more details about your book.
Well, it's really more of it's actually a book to work through. I give a lot of, I do give information about these different qualities and these different capabilities, but then I also really go through different steps that a woman can do or contemplations or action steps to actually try and kind of beef up those skills or those strengths. And then I also give a lot of input and feedback about how to start putting them into action.
Mm.
So it's definitely a book that's, to help women act and work on these their leadership skills and not just, kind of read about them and say, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
but,
Well,
but
I think
that's how I think. I want to know,
yeah.
how do I get it done?
Yeah. Well, I think that's really good to have the book kind of like bring out these possibilities of what your strengths are because, like you said, we're just so overwhelmed with the number of things that we have to do. And just saying giant builders, a really good skill to learn is how to say no sometimes.
Yeah.
And
And
just,
when you go ahead, sorry.
oh, and just knowing, okay, these are leadership skills, which ones are mine, and what can I build from that, and where can I put that into great use?
That's perfect. That you've just summed it up better than I did in all
Oh.
my words, because that's exactly what it is. And you say, learning how to say no, and no is a complete sentence. If we don't know what we want or don't know the direction we want to go, we tend to say yes just because we're good at stuff and we want to help people. We just most of us do that.
Mm.
But when you know what you want to do, you can say no. The flip side of that, though, is also learning how to recognize opportunities to say yes to. And sometimes that is maybe not something you thought of, but it's something that knowing yourself and knowing what you want to do, you think, oh, that might help me get to where I want to go. I'll
Okay.
say yes. And I'll just give a couple of quick examples. I grew up saying a lot of yes. I said no too once I learned how to, but I said a lot of yes. But there were certain points in my life that I kind of consider transition points. And one of them was my daughter had a stroke when she was 18. She had
Oh.
she had some health issues that we weren't aware of, and she had a stroke. My mom had died, and within 7 or 8 months, her dad decided to move on to something different in life.
Hmm. That's a lot.
And so I definitely focused in on taking care of her, getting her through her rehabilitation. She actually was paralyzed on the left side for a while and had to learn to walk and those kinds of things. So I was there for her, and it took about 2 years of rehabilitation for me to support her in her journey. But after that, I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do? Now, now it's me, and she's on her way, and I have to figure out what I want to do. And I did went through those steps of really looking internally and seeing what motivated me, what gave me pleasure, what purpose did I feel.
Mhm.
And I had been working in politics in Texas on women's issues, and I decided that was not the direction I wanted to stay in because it was getting more contentious than it had been before. And so I was offered this opportunity to go to the Maldives for 2 months to create a voter education program for their first multi-candidate presidential election. And I sat there and I said, that's scary. That's
Yeah, a
really
little bit it
scary.
is. Yeah.
But then I thought, that sounds also very exciting and a new
Mhm.
adventure. But I did ask them, will there be women on this team that I would be teaching how to do voter education? And they said, oh, absolutely. We really want to get women involved in voting and, and more independent voting. And I
Mhm.
said, okay, I'll go. And so I did. And that changed so much the trajectory of my life because I said
Yeah.
yes. From there I got involved in a lot of women's empowerment and trainings around the world and through the UN and through several non-government organizations that work with grassroots women's groups because that opened the door.
Mm.
And like I said, sometimes when those doors and opportunities show up, they could be scary and it takes a little bit of courage to say yes. But that's the flip side of knowing when to say no and knowing when to say yes, because I knew what I wanted to do and I knew the direction I wanted to go in.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Wow. Thank you so much for stepping up and really making an impact for us women. That's
Well, that's
great.
that's been my that's been my I've been doing it for over 35 years. That's the thread that kind of goes through everything I do.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's great. Well, what does a first meeting look like with you?
Usually, what happens is we have what I call a discovery call, where I get to know you. I get to know where you are, what it is you're envisioning, what success looks like for you, what is it you want to do. And then from there, we talk about the how I might be able to help you or guide you in getting to that success.
Okay. Well, great. All right. Well, we will have your links below and also a link to your book. The book will be in media. And I'll tell you what, Giant Builders, I do this once in a while. So we are going to give away one of Kathy's books. So if you leave a comment in the YouTube version of this podcast episode, I will have a drawing for a book.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I, if it's okay, can I add one more thing? Because the
Oh, yeah. I
big
forgot about
thing right
you.
now in my
Yeah.
life, besides the coaching that I do,
Hmm.
and I do have different programs that are kind of accelerated leadership programs for women to kind of get on the ground running. But I'm also I said yes to a TV show on a streaming network.
Oh,
Because
okay.
because once again, I wanted to give platforms for women's voices to be heard.
Uh-huh.
And that was once again, it was scary and it's going to be a big learning curve, but I'm in the
Yeah.
middle of it and doing it. But I did want to say that if anybody is interested in sharing it's an interview story, interview show for women to share their leadership journeys, what they've learned, what lessons, what they've challenges they had to face
Hmm.
and then share those for other women aspiring to elevate their leadership. Please contact me because I'm always looking for people to interview.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you. And I think you have a little gift for everybody too.
I do. It's a guide. It's 4 shifts that you can put into practice immediately
Uh-huh.
that can help you elevate your leadership, kind of figure out your strengths and how to move forward.
Okay. And that link is below too, Giant Builders. Kathy, thank you so much for sharing your story and just being so inspiring. I just really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you, Lois, for having me. And I love your podcast, and everybody should be listening to
Oh,
all the episodes because you really bring such a diversity of speakers and topics, but they're all so, so powerful and inspiring.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, Giant Builders, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.